Hi, I'm Dr. Steve Adorn, and welcome to the health segment of Western Wisconsin Journal. I'm a family practice physician from Hudson, Wisconsin, and we discuss a number of health topics on this show. Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to have different topics, but I want to talk about something that's affected a lot of us. As you may not know, I ran the Boston Marathon this year, and of course it was marred by the explosions and the tragedy along with the explosions. 3 people were killed, hundreds were injured. It was a terrible way to end what was a wonderful day. It was a wonderful day for me, and I just want to thank all the caring people that were concerned about me and my well-being. Fortunately, I finished about an hour and a half before the bombs went off, and I was long out of Boston proper before the bombs went off, so I was totally safe. But many people have come up to me and asked how things went and what was it like and was I involved, and I really wasn't involved. However, I did have a wonderful day. I did have a wonderful race. The people of Boston are fantastic people when it comes to this race. If you're from out of town, they'll ask, are you running the race? They're excited for you, even for themselves. Along the race course, it's lined by 500,000 people. They're cheering for people. When I needed some water, and there wasn't a water stop coming up, some guy was just handing out water bottles that he had bought or stole himself, and just when I needed one, because I had just eaten a supplement bar and I needed to wash it down. My nose was running, of all things, and they were giving out tissues along the way. People would look at your outfit and they would yell for you. They would support you. I had a Minneapolis Marathon shirt on, and I had a lot of people just say, "Go Minneapolis." About every mile somebody said that. The people lined practically the whole course, even though some of it is pretty rural. They back up their pickup trucks and they blast music. There's people playing music along the way, somebody playing drums, bagpipes. There's college students out there screaming. The girls from Wesleyan give away kisses. It's just a wonderful experience, and I had a very good race. I had a good time. I wasn't too sore, and I was very happy until the explosions at the Boston Marathon. It just marred everything. Now, of course, medically, they were somewhat prepared with fluids. IV fluids are an important thing at a race. They probably didn't have a lot of bandages or tools, we call clamps, to stop bleeding from major arteries. But I think because there was medical personnel around, I think it made a big difference. The other part that's medical is more the mental medical part of how this affects all of us. When there is this type of sabotage, it affects all of us mentally. In the intentional murder of common citizens, this act of terrorism, it was hard on me, it was hard on other people. I feel bad for not only the people that were injured or families of those that were killed, but also the runners that didn't finish. About 5,000 runners did not finish the Boston Marathon. These are people who had trained for it, looked forward to it, and some of them were stopped about a half mile before the finish line. Fortunately, recently, about 3,000 of them were able to run that final leg. They also got their medals, which I thought was right and fair. It's not their fault that the race had to be terminated. But this affects all of us. It affects not only the runners, the people that are injured, the city of Boston, the people of the United States. But you have to understand that the Boston Marathon, this was the 117th running of it. It's older than the Boston Red Sox. And it's an international race. At one point, I was running with a lady from London, well, not London, England, but from England. And it was interesting to hear what she had to say. There are people from all over the world there. Australia. This is the destination. This is the race. And these perpetrators picked out an international event. It's not unlike when the World Trade Towers were destroyed in 2001. That was an international event. So I think mentally we have to deal with this. It's hard. And then I just want to say again, thank you for all the support that I've got. Even today, and this is the end of May when we're filming this, a patient, or not a patient, but a friend came up to me and asked about my welfare and what happened to me while I was at that race. And this is a month and a half later. So I just appreciate all the support, because it is tough mentally, and it's always nice to ask about somebody else. All right, well, enough with that. I will probably run the marathon next year. We'll see how the training goes and all that. But I wasn't going to run it, but the gauntlet has been thrown down, and I just might take up the challenge again. Now, besides the Boston Marathon, there's some other concerns that have been going on recently. And there's been some heroin deaths that have somewhat touched me personally, and it's concerning. Right now, heroin is cheap, it's powerful, people don't know how to use it. I remember in the 1970s how many overdoses there were on heroin, and I said, this has got to be the worst drug there ever was, and it's a bad drug. Heroin is an opium derivative. It can be snorted, it can be ingested, it's usually shot into a vein. Mainlining a concentrated narcotic can kill you. It suppresses the respiratory system, you stop breathing, and you die. And people are using it. I don't know why. It's the challenge, it may be the cheapness, but it's extremely addicting, extremely addicting. And there have been so many overdoses of drugs, not that heroin is the number one overdose, but drug deaths now outnumber the traffic fatalities in the U.S. This is a 2011 article from the Los Angeles Times by Lisa Gurian, and drugs exceeded motor vehicle accidents as cause of death in 2009, killing at least 37,485 people. These are intentional taking of drugs leading to overdose. We don't know how many are suicides. I'm going to talk a little bit about suicide later on. But these are things that can be prevented. They don't have to happen. Now, I want to read to you a little bit about deaths at certain ages, okay? And in poisonings, which I'm going to say equates to overdoses, because overdoses are poisonings, okay? We'll start with the age 15 to 24 years old. It is the fourth leading cause of death in this age group. All right, overdoses or poisonings are the first major cause of deaths in people from age 25 all the way to 44. That's a huge number of people. And then age 45 to 54, there's still quite a few overdose deaths, and that's ranked third in that age distribution. So you see how big a problem this is. Now, one of the problems is prescription medicines. And they are just too freely available, coming from physicians. They're in the medicine cabinets. They're on the streets, tend to be cheap. People throw them in a bowl and at a party, and you just take what you want. You don't know what you're taking. You mix it with alcohol. It's not a good thing. Some examples are OxyContin, which is generally used in people with cancer or chronic pain, Vicodin, Xanax, Soma, fentanyl. These type of drugs kill more people than heroin and cocaine combined. So obviously we have a bad problem, and it's right in our medicine cabinets. Here's some of the examples that they cite. A 19-year-old Army recruit who had just passed his military physical took a handful of Xanax, which is a tranquilizer, and painkillers while partying with friends. He died. Another case, a groom, anxious over his upcoming wedding, overdosed on a cocktail of prescription drugs. He died. A teenage honors student overdosed on painkillers her father left in the medicine cabinet from a surgery years earlier. She died. It's just a waste. Here's one you may not think about. What about the elderly? They are extremely susceptible to these type of medications. A grandmother suffering from chronic back pain, which we like to take care of, apparently forgot she'd already taken her daily regimen of pills and ended up double dosing. She died. So we have a major problem with prescription drugs being used improperly, sold on the streets, taken wrong, just to get high. And it's ending up killing people, a lot of people. More people are killed by drug overdose than by motor vehicle accidents. Okay, so what are clinics intervening? How are they dealing with this problem? You just stop giving out pain medications? Well, if somebody has a broken arm, they should probably get some pain medicine that hurts. Some people do have legitimate chronic pain, maybe back pain. You try to find the right amount of medicine that controls their pain, but you have to watch out. These people get addicted to the drug. What we do at Hudson Physicians Clinic is we have patients who are on chronic pain medications, and we define that as over 3 months of use of narcotics. They have to sign the pain contract. The pain contract lists a bunch of conditions that they need to follow. One is that they need to be seen every 3 months to refill their medications. This helps us keep track of them. It makes sure that the medications are working, that they're not taking them incorrectly. They have to follow up with the same doctor. They can't go doctor shopping. They cannot go from one clinic to the next clinic or one doctor in a clinic to another clinic. They have to get it from the same doctor. They have to see the same doctor. And that doctor becomes responsible. And if he doesn't follow the rules, we fine them in the clinic. And there's a fine of $500 if the doctors don't follow the rules. That's how important this is. I've never seen anything like this in medicine, and I think it's an abomination, but that's just the way it is. Other things in the contract is they have to go to the same pharmacy. And the pharmacies can start talking to each other now, but it's real hard. If you keep going to a lot of Walgreens, they can talk to each other. But maybe other pharmacies may not communicate, so that we don't know that these people are getting these drugs from other doctors. And of course, if they get drugs from another source, or we just fire the patients from the clinic. We do urine drug screens. And we do this for a couple of reasons. One is that we want to make sure they're taking the medicine and not selling it on the street. So we look for the medicine in their urine. We want to make sure they're not taking other drugs like marijuana, cocaine, and so that they're not combining drugs, which is dangerous. That's what kills people, when they're combining drugs. If they fail the drug screen, they're fired from the clinic. We don't refill lost or stolen medications. I recently had somebody who called in, and this is a patient I've known for a long time, for a refill on a sleeping medication. And she said it got dumped down the sink, and I refilled it. I never ran into this problem with the patient before, and it turns out that the patient was taking more than the patient was supposed to be doing. And we got a little phone call from her husband saying that she's taken too much of this medication. And so, of course, we just cut her off and had her come in and gave her a talking to, and change her medications around. So she wasn't on that type of medication anymore. Hopefully, these type of interventions by clinics will dry up the prescription drug supply that's out there. The prescription drugs are a big killer right now, and we have to do something as physicians to put our foot down. We are the providers of that, and we are taking steps in our clinic to intervene on this. Now, another topic that has come to light is suicides. Young people committing suicide. There's been a couple of students that recently jumped off a bridge and they died. It's just sad. Now, certainly overdoses and narcotics that result in death could be purposeful. And sometimes it's hard to sort those things out. So statistics are very hard to sometimes rely on. In terms of suicide, it is the 10th leading cause of death overall in the United States. And that's a lot of people. And we can do stuff about that. I'm just going to read from the different age groups and what ranking suicide is in cause of death. For instance, in the 15 to 24-year-olds, suicide is the third leading cause of their death. The first cause of death is, of course, traffic accidents in that age group. These are your 16-year-old new drivers. For the age group 25 to 44, suicide is the second leading cause of death. That's up there. It's right behind poisonings or overdoses. And for people age 45 to 54, it's the fifth leading cause of death. When I was training, there was a lot of concerns about suicides in older people, and that is a concern, but it's not usually the highest cause of death because they die of a lot of other things, namely cardiovascular disease, strokes, heart attacks, and cancer. So in the younger people, suicide is a big cause of death. And like I said before, it's the 10th leading cause of death overall in the country. So we can help people if they get to us. Now, some people are going to commit suicide no matter what. And they won't tell you, they'll just go and do it. But there are other people that can be helped. And if you suspect that somebody's down, somebody's acting a little different, I think it would be a good idea to ask them if they're suicidal. I think in this society, we don't want to touch this subject. It shows that we have to talk about this subject. We have to talk about suicide. I, as a physician, it's a little uncomfortable asking somebody I've known for 10 years, are you thinking about suicide? And if they hesitate, I get really concerned. But you, as the average citizen, with people that you're acquainted with, it's very important if you say, he's pretty down. I wonder if he's thinking of doing anything to himself. So what do? How do you approach somebody who is suicidal? And it's not easy. It's really uncomfortable. But you know what? I've been talking about duty a lot lately. It's your duty to ask them about it. How do you ask them? You could say something to the effect, are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking of hurting yourself? Would you ever commit suicide? Those are questions that tell the person that you care and that you're thinking about them. People who are suicidal don't think people care about them, when people really do care about them. And that's part of the illusion, the irrationality of people who are depressed. They feel so bad about themselves that they don't think anybody cares about them. So if you ask about suicide, are you suicidal? Are you thinking of doing something to yourself? You're actually showing that you care for them. And it's very important to say, for them to say, hey, somebody is looking at me. Somebody is caring about me. And that just might be the road to recovery. All right, what can we do for people like this? Well, you have to work through some of the delusions about nobody likes them or they're no good. And that's counseling type of thing. There's also biochemical changes. And those biochemical changes can be helped with medications. And they're very successful. There's 10 million new depressed people in this country every year. And not all of them get treated. And they could be helped with the medication. Or just having someone to talk to. That can be very helpful. Friends and support. I'll ask people, are you all alone in this? Or are you getting support from friends? Life is tough. I've seen numbers of divorces. I've seen lots of infidelity. I've seen terrible tragedies, loss of family members. Life is hard as it is. People who can't get jobs, down on themselves. Life is hard, and we need to be there for people. And one way to be there for somebody is to ask them if they're suicidal. Just open the door and say, you know what, maybe you should go see Dr. Dorn or your doctor. Or if they're actively suicidal, you bring them to the emergency room. So today we talked about some sensitive issues, and one theme that runs through all these issues is support and caring. In the Boston Marathon tragedy, I found support and caring from people right here in Hudson asking about my well-being. In terms of drug deaths and suicide, sometimes if you're just there for somebody, you can make a difference. Thanks for watching the show. I'm Dr. Steve Adorn.